mode.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Great Garment Graphics, Get the Show on the Road, your guide to mobile heat printing, brought to you from Stalls. My name is Ken Chadwick, and I'll be the presenter today. Here's our agenda. We're going to try to take your heat press onto the road to produce personalized garments on demand. We're going to determine how to choose the best events and pricing strategies and production to wow customers and get your services on demand. Before we start, just a little bit about myself. My name is Ken Chadwick. I'm the Regional Group Stalls Sales Alliance representative for New England and Northeastern New York. I have over 25 years of decorated apparel experience. I owned a team sporting goods business for about 12 years, and I sold commercial embroidery equipment for a major manufacturer for about 14 years. And I was also a educator in both the United States and Saudi Arabia. And I founded the adult education program for an oil company in Saudi Arabia. So hopefully I'll be able to teach everybody how to do this and do it quite simply. Before we start our presentation, we'd like to do 2 poll questions. When you're doing a webinar, there's no audience in front of you, obviously. I can't tell whether you're getting it or not, nodding or frowning, whatever. So we asked for 2 poll questions. The first poll question is going to be how many years you've been in business. And the second poll question will be what kind of a heat press do you have if you have a heat press. So if Jody, you want to pull those questions up, people can answer them and take a few minutes.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining us today, Ken. And I'd also like to extend a warm thank you to everyone else who's attending the webinar. And we'll just give it a few more seconds. So Ken, it looks like the majority of our attendees have been in business either from 1 to 3 years or 4 to 9 years, and 25% are actually new.
Okay, good, good. That's a good start. That helps me a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And the next question would be, do you have a heat press, and what kind of a heat press? Do you have a clamshell or a swinger or an air press or a cap press? Once again, some people who are newbies may not have a press yet.
So what type of heat press do you own? And we're getting some votes in here. Okay, just give it one more second till I close the poll. Okay. And looks like the swinger. 27% own a swinger, 23% own a manual, 18% each own an auto opener clam, and 14% own the Fusion.
Terrific. Well, thank you. Thank you, Jody. Now we can start with the guts here. The most important part of going to an event off-site is selecting the event. If anyone's taken a seminar with me before, I kind of learned this saying a long time ago. I've kind of borrowed it from the Marine Corps, and it's the 6 Ps, and it's proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. You really want to prepare to bring your business off-site. And all of us who do this on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, do seminars, trade shows, one of our biggest concerns is forgetting something. I've done this in the past with embroidery machines, and knowing that you bring everything to the show, you've got everything, you're ready for every contingency, and gosh, you forgot your laptop. It's one of the more crucial things that you need in this industry. How do you transport your items? Where are you putting it? How do you hook it up? There's lots of different ways to figure out what we're trying to do here. But you have to bring your business to the marketplace. You have to determine what the customer wants, how they want it, when they want it. And to do that, we're going to do our strategic planning. It's called SWOT analysis. And each one of those capital letters stand for a word: strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. The first two are internal factors, strengths and weaknesses, and they have to do with you. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? If you're a newbie, you don't want to be practicing at this event. You want to be pretty good at what you're doing when you're doing it in front of people. When you first start out, you want to make your mistakes at home or in the back room where no one can see them. We have all, follow with me, we have all burned ourselves, burned a shirt, left a tremendously pink red shirt, embossed a 16 by 20 heat press mark on garments, melted things, scorched things, put holes in things. And one of the reasons that we know so many things today is based on those previous experiences. We don't do those anymore. We know the most important thing in heat printing and heat pressing is the recipes: time, temperature, and pressure. It's just like baking, if anybody bakes. If you are supposed to put chocolate chip cookies in the oven for 12 minutes at 350 degrees, putting them in the oven for 6 minutes at 700 degrees will not give you the end result that you're looking for. So everything that Stahl sells with regards to their materials and their graphic designs will tell you, included with your purchase, the time, temperature, and pressure. Think of that as your recipe. The variable is the substrate that you're putting it on. So one of your strengths can be your experience, where for some people, one of their weaknesses is going to be their lack of experience. The graphic will stick to most any substrate as long as it's, that's part of the recipe. Is it for cotton? Is it for cotton poly? Is it for poly? Is it for nylon? There are specific recipes for some of those, especially nylon. Is the nylon coated? Is it Gore-Tex? Is it water repellent, water resistant, or waterproof? So part of that is learning what those recipes will work on. Okay? The other thing that you want to do is you want to test items. If you're going to an event off-site, you are going to limit what you're going to be producing. You are not going to be producing on demand, if you will, where a customer is going to give you their raincoat and say, hey, can you put my name on this? It might happen, but you're not set up to do all those things. You want to control the process. You want to bring blanks. If you make a mistake, you can replace it. You want to control what you're going to do. When you have inventory, if you've got everything already applied onto your garments, you have inventory. What some people do is they have a basic pile, small, medium, large, extra large. They do a handful of samples, and then they have a stack of blanks, and they have a stack of transfers. They do not have inventory until they put the two together. If you overbuy for an event, you overbuy blanks, you can either use them for another purpose, if it's a gray or navy or white shirt or a sweatshirt, or you have graphics, and maybe you can amend those graphics and change them for another year or another event. As part of our planning, we look at our opportunities and our threats. Those are external factors. What are our opportunities? Are we trying to get our name out? Maybe we are the newest person on the block. You can't compete against the person that's been in business for 25 years, has 5 heat presses, and has the market cornered on maybe Little League or team sports. Maybe you have to look at a different avenue. Your threats. Are you the only person at this venue? Are there more than one person there? Are they more experienced than you? Are they have a different price than you? You have to look at those things. When we break down into our planning, we're going to break down into a couple of categories. Let's look at retail first. If you've been to a minor league baseball game, you see sometimes the minor league team has a heat press, and they have lettering kits where they will take Johnny or Susie's name and put it on the shirt of a minor league baseball team that the shirt has already been screened. We do the same thing with some major colleges on game day where they'll transform a small kiosk near a football stadium. We're talking Division I colleges like, maybe an Auburn or a Kentucky or Iowa State, where they will have the garments with the logos already on it. This is a licensed product, and the vendor will be putting names and numbers on. These people get very high dollars for this program. We also have kids' parties, birthday parties, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, where some of these parties have anywhere from 12 to 60 kids. And they'll have a transfer on the front of the shirt, I survived, Susie or Johnny's birthday or party or whatever it might be. We have trade shows. They're for consumers. A number of years ago in the embroidery business, I did a snowmobile show, and customers would come up and they wanted the color of their snowmobile on their jacket. But then they wanted the brand name, and they got into the licensing issues. You can't do certain things like that. You also have conventions. I've done a funeral director's show, one of my most unusual on-site, where they were personalizing things. They have even personalized caskets today. If these are usually done by the casket manufacturers, or a funeral home has a relationship with a local decorator, they even have scenarios today where you can shrink wrap a casket with your favorite NASCAR driver's logo or professional sports team. They embroider or heat press a logo on the fabric on the inside of the casket to personalize it with maybe outline of praying hands in film, or an American flag, or a soccer ball and the person's name with the date, their date of birth and the date they passed. You also have competitions. We have fire department musters and Civil War reenactments. We have athletic competitions, track and field meets. If you read Stahl's blogs a couple weeks ago, Stahl's was on site in New York City at a high school track and field meet where they had 3,500 kids participating with one of our customers, New Balance. And we were on site and we helped them personalize 3,500 bags on site with the youngster's name and their event and so many letters. So every participant left with a bag that said New Balance that was personalized. You have swimming meets. You have wrestling meets. I've had customers that would go during school vacation week and bring their equipment to a school, and they'd have 1,000 kids in a gymnastics camp. They would personalize their garments. They'd use their vinyl cutter to make an outline for a window decal of a young gymnastics student on a balance beam, and whatever the normal price they would sell it for, they'd add $1 and give that dollar to the sponsoring group. That was in lieu of rent. There are festivals like ethnic festivals. There are Greek festivals and Polish festivals and Irish festivals. There's religious church. There's fundraising. There's food festivals. There's car rallies. In this end of the business, creativity counts. If you have an idea for a unique or a neat design, that goes a long way of doing this. You need to deal with whoever the organizer is of that group. You need to do your homework. This is just like if you were in a rental situation or retail situation, how many people come to the event? You need to ask questions. It's just like if you're renting a retail store. Think about the location. Think about the parking. How many customers pass by that store every day? Is it visible? Do you have enough work to do your job? Does it have the right electrical service? When you ask your questions from the show promoter, you have to think like a business. This is a business. You're taking your business out of the four walls, and you're either putting into somebody else's four walls, or you're putting it at a location, maybe on a field or a court, outside maybe. What kind of attendee information can you get ahead of time? Do you know how many people came to this event last year? Or is it the first annual event? It's a little bit more risky when it's the first one because you have no track record. Look at trade journals. Look at websites. If you have the opportunity before you delve into this, go for an on-site visit. Walk and talk the show. What kind of people participate in the show? Are they learning like at a boat show? Are they potential buyers of a boat? Do they want personalized apparel with the name of their boat on it? Do they want it to be embroidered? Do they want it to be reflective? Does it have anything to do with safety? Why would you go to this particular event? You need to ask yourself that question. Do you pay to get in? Does a volunteer run it? Or is it a trade show committee? Is there an opportunity for personalization there? Is it a keepsake? Or is it a souvenir? Do you have specific knowledge of the event from your own special interest, niche marketing, or hobby? You have to know your audience. If you're going to a gun show, you better know the difference between a pistol and a rifle. At some of the shows I went with animals, either equestrian or dogs, customers didn't want a generic dog picture. They wanted their dog. Not only the breed, but if their dog had a red collar, they wanted my customer to be able to duplicate that red collar. There are funny circumstances too, where my customer would make that dog and get it ready to show them that this is what they're going to put on the garment, and the person in the audience would say, "But that isn't my dog. My dog has this, this, or this," something personal to the dog. So you have to be careful between generic and very, very, very specific. You also have to think about, if you don't know the difference between boats, between a saltwater boat and a freshwater boat, or fishing, the same thing. You can't go in there just expecting to get the jobs because you show up. You have to know a little bit something about what you're going to do. Are you the only vendor selling products there? Is there a food court? If so, where are you in comparison to the food court? Do you want all your garments to smell like sausage and onions, or spaghetti and meatballs, or whatever the food venue is? You have to think about that. Do you have opportunities for cross-selling? Do you have other items? Do you have promotional products that you represent? Do you embroider? Do you have a vinyl cutter? Is there an entry fee for this event? If people can get in there for free, chances are they are not going to be purchasing expensive items. This is when you go to qualify your event. What kind of a facility is it? Is it an athletic field where it's open air? Is it a convention center? Who runs the show? Is it a paid administrator? Is it a show staff? Do you have to wear a badge to get in? Is it only open to a certain group of people? Nobody under the age of 16, as an example. Is it a volunteer that runs the show? Is it a Little League parent, or a Chamber of Commerce that's opening up on the center park of a fall day or a spring day, and this is the best of your town, and 10 or 12, local vendors are there. You're not going to make as much money there as if you're at a specific event which attracts bigger money, antique cars or horses, as an example. What's the size of the show? How many people are anticipated? Is there a track record? At the end of the show, will you receive attendance information to follow up? It's a good idea to be able to follow up, because even though that person didn't buy anything from you today, or maybe you're at the weekend show, that person is a potential customer for you later on. Maybe someone's a purchasing agent for a company that you have no way of getting into that company because maybe it's not even in your area. But if you have some business cards, you have some way to communicate with them, maybe they like your work. So there's a lot of homework involved. Jumping up to the transportation here. When you're looking into transportation, you're bringing your shop on the road. How do you get it there? We've all seen vendors on the side of the road. Mother's Day is coming up. You're going to see plant vendors by the side of the road. Valentine's Day, people are selling roses. How do they set up? Depending upon the area of the country you're in, you're going to see people selling fish or clams or lobsters or you know, by the national parks, there's ethnic groups selling trinkets from, you know, from their tribe or wherever it is. You have all kinds of people. Those are vendors. How do they get their items to market? Do they have an RV? They have a pop-up tent, an SUV? They have a box trailer, cargo trailer? They have portable workshops? These are all ways that you get your product to market. If you're bringing, you learn a lot of these things the hard way, as some of my customers will attest to. If you have one of those little carry-along trailers or box trailers, things move. There's nothing like getting to a show and finding out your things don't work. Or you put your heat press and embroidery machine on top of a table with wheels, and as you went around a corner, it's no longer on top of that table. You must be able to get your things to the show wherever you're going in one piece. That's a big deal. And as you start out, many times you're just bringing things, you know, to a high school gymnasium. You're using your regular vehicle, an SUV or a hatchback or something like that. Get it into the, how do you get it in? Most people cannot carry a swinger by themselves. As a salesperson, I've always had a cart. Either I made it myself or I bought it commercially, so I can bring my Fusion in and out of my little hatchback in less than 15 seconds. Many of my customers have seen me do this. It's quite easy, but there's a cost to that little hookup. Or if you can make your own, you can buy like a salesman's cart for like a copy machine, and you can jury rig it, put a piece of plywood and bolt it on it, and it goes into your car almost like a baby stroller. So that's another thing that you have to figure out, how you're going to get your items to the show. Having those little Rubbermaid carts or luggage or rolling racks, all things like that help you get your items in one piece, and then you can use it for a double purpose as a display. It brings us to insurance. If you own or lease your equipment, if you own it, it's not such a big deal because your risk is on your own. But if you lease equipment, is it part of a bigger deal where you bought maybe 3 or 4 pieces of equipment together, you need to read your lease, because in many cases, your homeowner's insurance policy does not cover that piece of equipment unless it's on your site. Once it leaves the home, it is no longer insured. So you have to be aware of that. There are what's called inland marine policies that can cover it, and you can figure out what that is. But you have to find out what happens if your car gets hit on the way to the venue and they bust your machine. The side of the car gets dented. I've been hit twice in my 20-something years on the road, and in both instances I was fortunate enough to escape injury, and the person that hit me in both cases said, "Oh great, there's not much damage, there's a little dent in the car." And in both cases I opened up either the hatchback or the sliding door of a van, and I said, "I don't really care about the car, what I really care about is this." And their hands went to their face in horror because they didn't know what all that machinery was, and it looked expensive. And come to find out, it was expensive, but fortunately it was okay. So you need to know about the insurance. Just like in a shop, you'd have insurance if there's fire damage, water damage. You need to cover your equipment or else take the risk. The risk, as we go to weather, it's the same thing. Once you get to weather, it's one of the things that we cannot control. You can't control the weather. Bad weather can disrupt the best laid plans. If it's an inside event, you could also, during the winter months, you could have the event canceled because of snow. You've got all this inventory of maybe transfers or film and blank goods. There's nothing you can do about that. The same thing if you're in the southeastern part of the United States or the Midwest, you could have hurricanes or tornadoes. Even on an inside event, that's going to cancel the event. On an outside venue, you've got rain, you've got winds. Some people use pop-up tents. One of my customers called me in a panic. They had a pop-up tent. It rained overnight. They were all, protected from the elements until one of the show people went around and took a stick and stuck it up through the pup tent to take all the water out that had filled into the cavity, and watched in horror as all that water went on to their electrical equipment. That is cause for concern. Fortunately, it had a happy ending. But those things can happen, and you have to prepare for them. Part of our presentation here is our displays and fixtures. When you go to a show, you're going to have a space, and we'll get into the cost of that space later, but you need to utilize your space almost like on a boat. You want to be very well organized and use your space, whether you've got containers or hanging signage or racks. You have to think about using and attracting people to your booth. There's a tremendous difference between venues, whether it's indoor or outdoor. If it's indoor, you're competing with maybe professionals who have booth displays that they literally spend thousands of dollars on. If you go to these trade shows at ISS shows, Atlantic City or Orlando or Long Beach or Vegas, some of these big shows, those booth designs, layouts and everything, those are thousands and tens of thousands of dollars for that stuff. Our average customer is not going to be doing that. They're going to have some sort of a banner or signage. Look at some of the digital technology that's available today to make a banner or a sign that you put your store information on it, some generic information so you can use it from event to event to event. You really want to make sure that you have an attractive area so that people will come to you. Think about the environment on your setup. I mentioned earlier about smell if you're near a food venue, but what about noise? What about weather? If you're at a 4-H show and you're next to the hog pound, it's not going to be a pleasant place to be all weekend long. Signage is very important. The more information you can put on a sign, the quicker you can have for your job with your customers. So you might not have to discuss pricing. You might not have to discuss graphics. You might not have to discuss what you're selling because your signage helps to lower the time of your transaction. Part of your setup and your location and your signage also is your security. How safe is your equipment? You have to think about that. Personnel. How many people are you bringing? People have a cost, unless it's your family. If it's your family, there's a number of my customers who will tell you this, that sometimes the savings cost in family is not worth the aggravation of working with your family. Sometimes you can't ask your family to do things that you could probably ask an employee to do, and vice versa. Doing a trade show like this with one person is very, very, very difficult. I've done it myself. If anyone goes to some of the casino shows in the New England area, sometimes you're 6 or 8 people deep trying to answer questions, and despite the fact that you have 2 ears, they only kind of like work as one. You can't do 2 things at once. So you want to bring a couple of people with you. Traditionally, one person is going to work out front. They're going to kind of be like the carnival barker, if you will. They'll bring people to the booth. They'll get things going. They'll maybe set up the order, maybe write the order, take the order, and the other person would do production. If you're adding a vinyl cutter or if you're adding an embroidery machine, you have to have manned people to do that. Your orders have to flow. You have to get into a nice flow because people aren't going to be willing to wait. Okay, so personnel is important. Lots of times it's husband and wife, father and son, mother and son, father and daughter. You can't argue in front of the customers either. I've seen almost every situation, and if you're on the call and I've witnessed one of those things, I feel for you because I've seen them. Power and layout. Depending upon what type of equipment you bring with you, that's going to determine what kind of power you're going to need. If you're inside, generally speaking, you're just going to have regular household, 110 power. If you're outside and, there's not too many, 1,000-foot extension cords, and we don't recommend using a long extension cord with a heat press, but if you're outside, you may have to have a generator. That contributes to noise. It contributes to potentially smell. It's gas. You have to think about all this stuff. So if you're inside or somebody supplies power for you, that's great. You have to accommodate that gasoline-powered generator if that's your situation. So you have to think about power. Generally speaking, we do not recommend you using an extension cord for a heat press. The reason being is the heat press draws power. Okay, it goes up and down depending upon when you're using it. So if you must use an extension cord, and most of us have at one time or another, you need to use a heavy-duty industrial extension cord. You can't use one of the little extension cords you use for Christmas lights or to reach an outlet for a table lamp in your house. You need to use a heavy-duty power cord. The layout is very important because that helps your flow of your work. As I mentioned before with the personnel, they kind of work hand in glove together. If you only have 2 people, then the layout has to work for those 2 people. You don't want to have to be walking around too much. If you've got a 6x6 booth or a 6x10 booth, you shouldn't have to walk too much. You should be able to stand at one central location and almost grab everything that you're looking for. If things to make it easier, some people have like those plastic tubs, the containers. I'm not going to be brand specific, but it's like Rubbermaid, I think, is a brand people know. Sometimes people will put different size T-shirts in each container, and that makes your job a little bit easier. Also, you have to remember to put them back in the right spot. If one person always puts it back and the other person doesn't, that's going to lead to mistakes. You don't want to make mistakes. That leads to competition. How many people are going to be at this show? Part of that has to do with the competition. If it's a big show and it attracts a lot of people, people are going to want to go to the show. So you have to be aware that you may not be the only person there. You have to think about what your talent is, what your ability is, because generally speaking, at a show, you're not going to have a price war. Generally speaking, most people are at these shows to make money. It usually costs money to have a booth, and so therefore, your first job is to break even. Your second job is to make a profit. Okay, so generally speaking, each guy or each gal there isn't going to say, "Hey, I can do it cheaper." If you have quality, service, and price, you want to have at least 2 of those in your favor. Okay, so competition isn't bad, but it may be different things. One person may have an embroidery machine, another person has a heat press and a vinyl cutter. You do different things. One booth may have all 3. The other one only has a heat press. So be good at what you sell. If you're selling transfers, have it be good artwork. Have gang sheets, cut down the cost of it. Maybe a multicolor design. Maybe you have a digital transfer where they're sold by the square inch as opposed to the color. So a 6-color logo and a 1-color logo costs the same to you. Price them accordingly. Sometimes the competition knows what's going on. They kept up with the latest trends. Sometimes they're going to sell what sold last year. If you keep on selling what sold last year, eventually you're going to get caught. You're not going to sell anything this year. Market trends change. Sometimes they're cyclical. The vintage look is in. It was in 25 years ago, and in the interim, there were other things that were in. So be aware. See what the kids are wearing. Look to see in your magazines, your trade journals. Look at the webinars. Look at the videos. See the multimedia applications. See what the competition's doing, not only in your area, but if you're somewhere else for a wedding or a family reunion, go to a shop or a mall and see what the people are wearing in that area of the country. It's only a matter of time before it gets to certain places, regardless of where you live in the Northeast, the Southeast, the West Coast, Alaska, Hawaii. It doesn't matter. All these things move. Every trend doesn't start in California or Europe. A lot of them do, but there are also trends that are indigenous to the Midwest. So you have to look at what the competition's doing. You have to meet the competition, and in some cases, you have to beat it. Your products and production. Once you're dealing with your personnel, we're dealing with flow. You're taking the order, you're checking the order, and you're producing it. We're trying to think of a fast food restaurant. Think of the window. They have that down to a science. They know how much everything costs. They know how long it takes. They make your change. It cuts down on the process, and then you go to window number 2 and get your product. The whole goal is to get them in, get them out, keep them happy, and get the money. So how long do you think a person is willing to wait? If you get backed up at your booth, tell them that they'll be ready in 15 minutes or 20 minutes. If it's a very, very small show, they can go to, you don't want them to be leaving. You always get payment first. Always, always, always. If they don't come back, you got the garment and you got the money. But when you think about it on your system for your production, think of it like a deli counter system. Some people assign numbers. Some people have playing cards. I've seen some gimmicks at like seashore restaurants where they have painted rocks with numbers on it. And it's certainly a gimmick, but that's how they know that your order. At the gate, at the window, they'll say calling number 4, and somebody will come with either a seashell or a flat rock with the number 4 painted on it. Some people have used playing cards, and that way people have something to hold, similar to a restaurant giving you the little beeper that when your table's ready, they'll call you. Okay. Part of production is you're going to do stock production. If you have a theme for the event, that's what you're going to do. Do that theme. You might get somebody who's going to want a custom order. At that snowmobile show, I believe, years ago, somebody said, well, I have a bus company, and I want you to put, a picture of my school bus on the back of a nylon jacket. Well, the amount of time it would take to produce that jacket would have taken all your time away from the show. So they offered to take a deposit and produce it off-site, gave them a time frame, and do it off-site. Do not do something that you could do better off-site or a custom order unless you're not busy or you have time to kill. Focus on the show. Now let's go to money, a subject that's near and dear to everybody. What does the booth cost? Okay, sometimes there's a difference between price and cost. You have to know what comes with that booth. If you're dealing with a union venue, as an example, you can't plug in your items by yourself. There's a cost for electricity, so much per day. Even though you're using very little electricity, you still have to pay for electricity. You can't bring your own items in to the venue. Sometimes if you're at a casino or you're a convention center, it is ruled by union rules, and you must pay for labor. Even though you only need that person for 10 minutes, you have minimum charges. They go anywhere, some of them I've seen and actually had to pay for, $90 an hour. $90 in, $90 out, and it was 10 minutes each way. And I certainly was capable of doing it myself, but that's the way it is, okay? So you have to know what your cost of the booth, what it really encompasses. Are you paying for space? Sometimes the next door neighbors like to encroach. They're paying X amount of dollars per booth, and they can get an extra 3 feet out of you. You have to protect your space. When a lot of the sales reps in my territory work together, we do hotel shows. And after doing 12 or 14 hotel shows, you get along pretty well with everybody. You help each other set up. You help each other take down. When one person isn't there, they're either at lunch or the ladies' room or the men's room, you help them out. Make sure you give business cards. Be a good neighbor. Setup is important. Does the booth cover that? Do you have certain hours that you can set up? Some places, if the show starts at 10 o'clock on like say a Saturday, your setup is completed by 8 o'clock on Friday evening, so you're ready for the next day. Does it count security? Does it include a waste paper basket? Does it include, if it's a concrete floor, does it include carpeting? All these things are a la carte. It's like going to a restaurant. This is the cost of your steak. Now, you want to side with that? That's extra. You want a beverage? It's extra. You have to know the difference. These are for more of the convention-type sites or boat shows or shows that are professionally administered. You have to know your costs. As you go forward, some people have garnered a reputation, and they are actually in demand. And because they are a draw and because they do such a good job, the venue offers them free space or sometimes even pays them, maybe pays their accommodations, to go to the show. That's when you know you've made it. That's not typical today, and it's usually the 1%, as we say. But Sometimes you can barter for the booth costs, that maybe you're giving something or you're doing a donation. In the case of, adding $1 to the product, if you sell 100 products, you give $100 to the organization. There's lots of different things involved with that, but the biggest deal is space, electricity, setup, unions, and security. If you have to wear a badge to get in, as an example, you can be pretty comfortable that your equipment will be there the next day. Okay. As we're moving on here to payment policies, take a page out of the fast food restaurants in their order window, payment prior to production. We'll say it again, payment prior to production. We are producing on demand for a profit. This is not the time to think that, oh, well, it's for a nonprofit organization, I'll do it for cost. If you do it for cost, you've lost money because you are now free. The most expensive thing in the booth is you or the personnel. So think about how you're going to make money. Think about how you're going to make change. Your payment policy should be written down so everybody can see it. When we talked about signage, that's one of the places that we want to deal with. Try to have even numbers so you don't have to make change. $10, $15, $20, $30, so you don't have to make change. Think about bundling products, 2 for, 3 for. If you go some of the retail stores or like say a college campus or a resort, they'll bundle a t-shirt and a cap, put a ribbon around it and have the same venue on it. Look at places that are more famous for their t-shirts than for their food. You look at a Hard Rock Cafe or a Hooters. Neither one has particularly food that everybody, award-winning food, but a lot of people have their clothing. Okay, think about that. That's a way that people do things. There are rules and regulations and licenses. You have a license to work in the state that you live in. If you have a business, that license may not be good if you're in a different state. So you are responsible for knowing the state rules and licenses. Sometimes you need a vendor license for a day, a week, a month, or for an event. Sales tax. Every state has a different rules on sales tax. Some states have no sales tax on clothing, so it's not to worry, but other states do. You are responsible for that. You are responsible for paying any tax. You don't want to find that out about that after the fact. Credit cards. I think most people realize that you will get more money you will sell more items if you take credit cards. With cell phones and so forth, you'll have an opportunity to sell more with credit cards, but not everybody takes credit cards. All sales are final. Okay, that's a very important thing. You may not be in the state that's 3 states away from you for another year or never. All sales are final. Okay. Speaking about profit, how do we determine profits? Simple is profit is revenue minus costs equals profit. Sometimes breaking even can be profitable depending upon your business. If you're new, you might be using this event as advertising. You might be using it to gain visibility in the marketplace. You're looking for name recognition. Or you might get a large off-site order that even on-site you broke even, but somebody gave you an order for 500 or 800 pieces off-site. That would make it profitable. If this is a repeat event, your goal was to beat last year. Was the weather different? Did you change your venue? Was your space better? These are all things that could possibly help you as you're counting money for profit. Closing, how we break down. You want to break down as a system. You're going to be tired. If you've ever done any of these shows, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to set up. You want to break down in a system. Whatever you brought in, you want to put it back in your vehicle in the reverse system, in the reverse order. You want to make sure, even though you're tired, you want to make sure that you put the larges with the larges and the mediums with the mediums, because it'll be so much harder to do later. It's easier to do it. Hopefully you will be leaving with less than you brought, so it'll be a little bit easier. I have included a checklist. I'm not sure how we're going to get this to you, but at the end, I have a checklist of about probably 25 to 40 items that make your job easier to bring, and it's nice to have a checklist so you don't forget things. How to evaluate your show. You have to evaluate your show. Did you have fun? Did you turn a profit? Did you meet people? Maybe there's a different market that you can do differently next year. Maybe your inventory needs to be amended. Maybe you brought too little. Maybe you brought too much. You need to manage your inventory costs. Think about sizes versus generic. Are you doing blankets or scarves where there's no sizes involved, or are you doing clothing? You know, if you don't have a double extra large, maybe you're not going to sell to that. If your items are event specific, you know, you had a date on it. Did the weather affect it? Did you sell out of this? Did the blue all sell and the pink didn't, or vice versa? As part of your evaluation, did your signage, did it show visual excitement? Did you create a sense of urgency, like I'm only going to be at this show on Friday and Saturday, so you need to buy it Friday, Saturday. I won't be here for a year. The trick is a quick sale, high profit. And the follow-up is you want to call people that came to your booth, see if they were happy. Just like things happen at a trade show, you generally get a call from people, hey, how was it? Is there anything else I can do? Did you want to buy in those specials, etc.? Beat last year is one of the deals if we can. My name is Ken Chadwick. If anyone has any questions outside of the venue here, they can phone me. My cell phone's on the screen. My email is kenwchadwick@yahoo.com. It's a common issue not to include the W. If you don't include the W, I won't get it. For more education or opportunities, you can log on to greatgarmentgraphics.com or to Stalls for webinars. You can click on events. My personal next event is in, I have heat press boot camps. I have 9 2-hour boot camp classes, 3 a day. It's the same class in repetition. May 14th, 16th, and 23rd. It's hosted by Mirror Image, is a very famous screen printer, 190 Exchange Street in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. If people can take advantage, it's free. You sign up for the day and the class time. You spend your 2 hours in the class, and you go home. You don't take the whole day. You'll be going through the differences between some of the different Stalls companies. There's 18 separate business units today in 20 countries on 4 continents. We go through some of the differences. Why should I order from this company as opposed to this? Do I want to order film, ink, digital transfer, plastisol ink transfer? There's hands-on applications. I have the Fusion there, and you'll actually do some hands-on with some difficult substrates like PVC vinyl as an example, or performance moisture management clothing. We'll open up our board here for questions. If anybody has questions, here's the checklist that I referred to earlier. I'm always adjusting to that and adding to it. And actually, if you're indoors, it's probably not a bad idea to have some sort of a mat, like an anti-fatigue mat. And some people, especially the new people, when they take things off the heat press, it's hot, especially if it's a hot peel. So some people actually use like a hot glove, almost like an oven mitt, but it's more like a golf glove. It's not too unwieldy, or else have some finger protection. We also will have a blog after this, and I think you'll be able to access this mobile checklist either through our website, through Great Garment Graphics, or through the blog. So we thank you for joining us today, and if you have any questions, we'll take them now. Just type in your questions.
Hello again, Ken. It looks like we only have one question, and Charles was wondering what your telephone number was. He only got the first 6 digits.
Okay, it's area code 617-312-7453 is my cell phone.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ken. And Kitty was wondering if we could put the list up a little longer, but I will reiterate that Kitty, and to all attendees, that the checklist will be available in the post-webinar blog, and that way if you wanted to save it to your computer or simply print it out, it will be accessible to you. That should post by the end of the day today, and if not by the end of the day, it'll be up there first thing in the morning tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. It's a lot easier than having to write it down.
Absolutely.
Also, if you have any suggestions for future topics for our webinars, please let us know. Go to either Stalls ID or greatgarmentgraphics.com. And currently there are over 150 videos on Stalls. And Great Garment Graphics has been offering webinars since, I believe, 2009. So typically one a week or one every other week for that time period. And if you're not able to participate it live, you can go to our archives for that particular year or month or topic, click on it, and you can listen to it, obviously not live, but you can listen to it in your leisure time and go back to it and refer to it. And once again, we'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy day. We know it's tough to do it at certain times of the day if people are in front of you, but we try to have a variety of topics, a variety of presenters, a variety of viewpoints and so forth to help people to learn more about this exciting business. There's a couple of things that you might want to know is last week on the cover of Sports Illustrated, there was a football player in an Under Armour garment that Stalls had decorated for Under Armour. And last week we were behind the curtain through one of our business units at the NFL draft, and we were personalizing the names. So when the NFL draftee came out holding his new football shirt for his team that drafted him, his name was on it. And we had approximately 90 seconds from the time that we were informed that the team chose it to the time that he walked out on the stage to have the shirt. So that's mobile heat pressing at its best, and with the added pressure of it's on live TV with 90 seconds to deal with. So thanks again, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact us or any of our divisions or myself personally. And our next webinar is going to be a crash course in custom transfers, and that'll be May 10th from 2 to 3, sponsored by Transfer Express. Thanks again. Have a great day, and if we can help you in any way, don't hesitate to contact us. Thanks again on behalf of Stalls and Great Garment Graphics, and hopefully you learned something, and feel free to contact us at any time. Thanks, and have a great day.